You say.
Today's Sunday school lesson is Jesus Shared. It's going to be in Acts chapter 17. And it teaches us in the Bible in Matthew chapter 10, verse 7 and 8. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the leper, raise the dead, cast out devils, freely ye have received, freely give. And I interpret that as, it don't cost nothing to tell somebody about Jesus.
That's right.
It don't cost you a dime. Just, all you have to do is I've said it many times before, is plant the seed. Is all we have to do. In Romans 1 and 16, it says, For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jews first, and also to the Greek. So in other words, it's free to everybody. It doesn't matter who it is. And reading a little bit more into it, it teaches us of how do you plant that seed for God? What do you teach people about what they need to know about salvation? And you go to Romans chapter 3, verse 23. All right, chapter 3, verse 23. Pages so thin, my hands are so thick, I can't get to it. It teaches us all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, verse 23. And it's okay when you start that conversation, let them know that as Christians, we're not perfect. We fall short. And as you plant that seed, a lot of people don't want to talk about Christ because they feel like, it's bad to say, but they feel like they're better than they are. A lot of people, it's all, of course, how your attitude and how you approach people. You don't show people that, we're nobody better than anybody else. We just have to teach what we need to teach and do what we need to do as far as show them the way of God. In Romans 5 and 8, it says, God commanded us His love towards us, in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. You need to tell them your story of what salvation has done for you, is what it teaches us. And from what I understood, I had a guy tell me, it's like a rock in your shoe. If you plant that little seed, or you put a rock in somebody's shoe, they're going to come back to that rock when it's all said and done. They're going to think about that rock. You plant that seed, it's the same thing, like having a splinter in your hand. You may forget it for a little bit, but eventually it's going to pop back up in your head, and you're going to think about it. Same thing as a rock in your shoe. It's going to show itself again. And the Bible tells us if you plant the seed, He'll make it grow. He'll water it. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be a year from now. But eventually He's going to water that seed. And that word that you put in somebody's head, eventually it's going to come back. Jason told me one time that God loves me. Especially in times of need, it's going to come back to people. It's like the thing I studied the other night, how far is it from heaven to hell? Probably from here to here. That's the distance between heaven and hell. Everybody you go to, you can walk up to anybody in the street, they probably give you a Bible verse. They can tell you the book, but they don't know the author of the book. That's where things run in at. You can have it in your head, but if you don't have it in your heart, you're in trouble. You're honestly in trouble. And that's where we need to, as Christians, plant these seeds and tell people how to get to salvation. A lot of people feel like a lot of people don't want that road down their throat. You don't have to drive anything down their throat. You don't have to find it, right? You plant that seed just right here, tells you He will make it grow. Plain and simple. But that's what I have this morning. So we're going to be at 286.
I've been the bright and shining place. I've been the Lord. about the kid, he started finding his head. Not up to him, she's just, it's somebody
There, you stood her up.
Yeah.
Tough.
Misty
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I hope everybody's had a blessed Sunday morning. Y'all kind of like, yeah, it's all right. It's kind of what it is. A little drizzly out there. How many of y'all wanted to lay up and sleep today? Oh, what a great day for sleeping, ain't it? Ain't y'all glad y'all got up and made it to the house of God? Yeah. It's good to be back in the house of the Lord. Man, I got back Wednesday